Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are being exiled from the Republican Party all over the issue of immigration, specifically something called a H-1B visa, which comes to a surprise to me, not at all, but to Elon and Vivek, probably a lot. They had no idea the minefield that they were walking into when they started advocating on an economic and cultural level, trying to force more immigrants within the United States. But let's back up, because on the foundation of this issue is the idea of whether America is an economy or a nation. And it is often popular in our culture and in society today to think of America just as an economy, but this is an issue that both brings up both populist and economic sentiments on the left and the right, and is one of the fundamental issues of our time. So let's step back. What created this issue was a guy named Shram Krishnan, who was apparently a donor to Kamala Harris's campaign, was a probably moderate to left-leaning Democrat who was appointed by Donald Trump to help out with AI initiatives. Him being an Indian immigrant and obviously being a Kamala Harris donor and a supporter of more H-1B visas obviously infuriated a lot of people on the right wing. More specifically, people on the cultural populist right wing. These are the Stephen Millers, Steve Bannons, and kind of the more anonymous cultures on Twitter, such as Bronze Age Pervert, Dr. Benjamin Braddock, and even people like Raw Egg Nationalists, very large accounts that if you're not following, you should look into for a very right-wing perspective on all the cultural issues of today. Funny enough, Laura Loomer is actually the one who also initiated this debate by roasting Trump for picking such a left-leaning appointee and bringing up the H-1B visa issue. Elon and Vivek both responded, essentially stating that we need to double down on talented immigration, and Vivek even stated how in America we have a cultural problem, indicating that America values the high school jock as opposed to the mathematician. This issue is hard to summarize because it attacks so many fundamental political foundations currently within America, but I'm gonna try to break it down. The first issue is, of course, is America simply an economy or a nation? If it's an economy, then all that matters is GDP, productivity, and efficiency. Economies do not have cultures. Economies are simply places where you can go to maximize profit. This is the belief of, say, the far left people like Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar and her constituents moved to America, refused to adapt to its culture, and simply view America as a place where they can keep their own identities from where they're from and have better jobs. This is what's interesting about the far left, is the far left of Ilhan Omar has actually ditched the far left of Bernie Sanders, because the old Bernie Sanders would have said that America is not an economy, it's a people that need to be defended from the excesses of capitalism. But the Ilhan Omars of the far left actually believe that capitalism is all America is. And if it's all America is, then that means anyone should be able to move here based upon merit to compete with the current people here, and the best rise to the top. And this is very similar in its difference between the right wing, which is the Elons of the world, and let's say the Tucker Carlsons of the world. One thing that I quote often is actually a debate between Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson. Ben Shapiro being the neoconservative who's all for foreign policy invasions and treating America as an economy, against Tucker Carlson, who thinks that GDP is not all that matters. One of my favorite statements in their debate is truckers. Will automated trucking destroy the entire trucker industry? Yes, it most likely will. And Ben Shapiro's argument is that those truckers should simply learn to code. But Tucker Carlson's argument is that maybe it's the nation's job, the government's job, to slow that transition of technology, because maybe those truckers won't simply be able to learn to code at the age of 40 or 50. Maybe there's more to just the GDP in America. Maybe there's something about having a strong hometown, a strong family, and maybe there's cultural and economic issues that kind of trump some of these transitions. Trucking is one of the largest jobs in America, and if it were wiped out today, it would cause huge cultural and social issues that economics and GDP can't really predict. The point being that maybe it's a nation's job to look after its people amidst technological innovation and capitalism, and not just leave them by the wayside. Which brings back the fundamental issue for people like Elon and Vivek, who obviously sided with Donald Trump and are big reasons he got elected. But what is more important? Is it more important to find somewhat talented tech labor to come in and compete with Americans? Or is it more important to train those Americans? Now, there's a lot of oddities in this because a lot of these Silicon Valley elites will simply state that Americans don't want to do the work. This is often what we hear from the far left and why we need immigration, especially from the Chamber of Commerce. One of the arguments is that we need immigrants because they will do jobs Americans won't. But they don't step back and think that maybe Americans won't do these jobs is because the economics of capitalism dictate that those jobs aren't valued correctly. Maybe those jobs don't have health care. Maybe they don't pay appropriately. Maybe there's simply jobs that machines should do and not humans. A basic economics lesson is that you have labor and capital, and when labor is short, capital intercedes, and that's why we have technological growth and technological innovation. In fact, increasing the supply of labor decreases capital investment, along with artificially depressing wages, which you could say is exactly what an H-1B visa does. And this is where things kind of get lost in translation. When I'm saying H-1B visa, the problem with H-1B visas is they've by and large been corrupted. Originally, H-1B visas are supposed to be for companies that can't find American talent. But really what's happening is American tech companies would much rather grab an H-1B visa foreign worker, treat them like dirt, than invest in an American. Because an American is fluid and can simply move jobs if they don't like it. But when you have an H-1B visa, someone from India, for example, as is popular in the debate right now, simply just doesn't want to go back to the standard of living in India. They'll do anything to stay in America, which means working 20 hours a week. But the Silicon Valley culture of grinding away in a closet or working 20 hours a week comes from founders who had equity in those companies. But a lot of these founders now are dictating that their employees work just as hard for no equity at all. And that's how they treat these H-1B visas. In fact, Facebook and Google have had to settle lawsuits where they've purposefully wanted to hire foreign labor when there actually was no need for foreign labor, which is required for these H-1B visas. It's been exposed that now entry-level positions are being used to broadcast to H-1B visas, which makes no sense because the H-1B visa is specifically meant for jobs that Americans can't fulfill. But any American can fulfill an open-ended accounting position that's simply not at all complex. I even saw a post where they were looking at H-1B visas for pickleball players. Now, whether that was in jest, I don't know, but it proves the cultural point. So, of course, it's my opinion, in case you haven't guessed, that Elon and Vivek are on the wrong side of this debate. But that doesn't mean that they should be vilified. A lot of people on the doomer right are simply looking at every opportunity to think that we've been tricked and that the world's going to end. Trump is a plant, that there's no way we can get out of the current situation that we're in, and that Elon and Vivek have been playing some kind of long game to co-opt the Republican Party and Donald Trump to make sure that Republicans don't actually get what they want. But this is categorically false and I think a ridiculous statement. What you have in Vivek and Elon is a technological archetype. Both of them, Elon is an immigrant himself. Vivek comes from an immigrant family. Both raised to the top in the tech world, did whatever they needed to do to become successful, and both have made huge impacts on American conservative political culture for the best. Elon's opening up of Twitter as a conservative free speech platform has done wonders for the Republican Party and is largely responsible for Trump winning, in my opinion. In fact, Elon Musk is probably one of the reasons Joe Rogan had Donald Trump on his podcast. Vivek was a Trump surrogate, often denouncing some of the positions that he's hinting at right now, talking about needing to limit immigration, and brought a very sophisticated kind of camaraderie to people who are on edge about Trump due to his personality. Both Vivek and Elon, along with people like Vance, RFK, and Tulsi, are big factors in why Donald Trump won, and that should not go understated. Obviously, immigration, legal or illegal, are a big issue within the Republican Party, and we have the benefit of arguing amongst ourselves because we know in less than 30 days Donald Trump will be our president. So this is simply winners arguing amongst winners. And it's actually a great cultural debate to have. And it's going to show to you which faction in Donald Trump's presidency is stronger, because you have the Steve Bannon and Steve Millers of the world, along with the Viveks and Elons, who will get along but will differ on this issue. More than likely, there's going to be a convergence, because after all, Trump created a big tent and that's how he won. What we're witnessing isn't some kind of Republican civil war. We're looking at just different factions of the Republican Party who aligned on multiple issues but just happened to differ on this one. There is no malicious intent. It's just that these two factions have a completely different idea of what America is and what Americans are. And both of them view Donald Trump as a vehicle to complete that vision. But more than likely, I believe that the tech right will succumb and actually lose this battle. But it's my opinion that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy will actually have to kind of back up and surrender some of their position. They will have to simply advocate for more O-1 visas, which is an O-1 visa is the top tier of immigrant who have high IQ, high net worth, who are very aggressive, and back off on their want for an increase in the H-1B visa program. JD Vance will most likely side with the cultural right. I think we see that in the fact that he brought Daniel Penny to the Army-Navy game, showing that he understands the cultural right more than the tech right, even though he is a closely tied individual with Peter Thiel. Reading his book, Hillbilly Elegy, shows you that he understands the cultural norms more than anything else. And those in the Midwest, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan, states that are going to be crucial for any Republican to win in 2028, are going to want to see Americans hired and trained more so than the H-1B visa programs promoted. There is more to lose for the Republican Party to want more H-1B visas than to simply destroy the program. And this is where economics and politics come to a head. Because even if Elon and Vivek could argue that it's economically beneficial to allow more H-1B visas in the United States, it simply won't do politically in swing states, which means that their promotion of these programs, in my opinion, is political suicide for the Republican Party. And both Elon and Vivek are smart enough, I think, to realize that. And Elon owns Twitter, which means he can see every single opinion going on and look at that data. Once they understand the populism of Twitter and X and how far right this conversation has drifted, I don't think they will be able to have a top-down approach. I think they will have to kowtow to these anonymous right-wing accounts because their popularity is very obvious. But it's key to note that this is probably the most divisive issue among Donald Trump's current big tent. Beyond foreign policy and interventions in foreign wars, this idea of immigration and what America is meant for is the fundamental issue that will divide the right in perpetuity. But I would much rather have this debate and have people like Elon Musk within our big tent than to not have this debate at all and lose large, rich tech billionaires. Because the fact of the matter is, without someone like Elon Musk, it's very likely Donald Trump could not have won the election. And so regardless of whether I think Elon Musk is right or not, I'm thankful he's on our side.